Hello and welcome to Mercury Now. I am your host, Ralph Gavares, and today's topic, Women in STEM and Mercury's sponsorship of a predominantly female Brigham Young University capstone team called Cognite. Now, for the benefit of our listeners, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. We did some research on the topic of women in STEM, and the findings were very surprising to me. According to Catalyst, a nonprofit group that helps build workplaces that work for women, STEM occupations are expected to experience rapid growth in the coming decades. However, despite this, there is still a gender gap in STEM, which persists across the world. Men continue to make up the overwhelming majority of students studying STEM in higher education and dominate the STEM workforce in many countries. Now, why is this the case? And when will we begin to see more women emerging in STEM roles? Well, my guest and I, we're going to have that very discussion right here on Mercury Now. Joining me today are Allison Gibson, External Relations Manager and Capstone Coordinator for the Electrical and Computer Engineering School at Brigham Young University. A return guest, Sabrina Pena, Mercury Senior Manager of Software Engineering, and Chris Opuszinski, VP and GM for Mercury's Data and Microsystems Business Unit. Allison, Sabrina, and Chris, good day and welcome to the show.
Great to meet you, Ralph, and thanks for having me on the show.
Hi, Ralph. Glad to be here.
Hi, Ralph. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thank you all for your time. Before we begin, can each of you please give our listeners a brief background on your current roles? Allison, let's begin with you. And also, please tell us who Team Cognite is.
So in my role, I'm responsible for bringing in up to 60 unique real-world industry projects for our senior level engineering students. This year, 3 students from electrical engineering, 2 from mechanical, and 1 from computer engineering form Team Cognite, who's been tasked with developing a DDR memory module tester for Mercury systems. The team is mentored by Sabrina and coached in day-to-day operations by a faculty coach. I'm particularly excited about Team Cognite this year because this is our first female majority capstone team. 5 of the 6 team members are women.
Thank you, Allison. It's very exciting indeed. Sabrina and Chris, tell us a bit about your current roles. Let's start with you, Sabrina.
Sure. I'm one of the engineering managers for Mercury's data division in Phoenix, Arizona. I manage a cross-functional team of engineers and act as a mentor and technical liaison for Team Cognite.
Thank you, Sabrina. Chris, please, brief background.
Thanks, Ralph. As you've mentioned, I'm the VP and GM for the Data and Microsystems businesses in Phoenix, and I'm really excited to be the executive sponsor for Team Cognite.
Well, thank you again all for joining me today. Very exciting indeed. Let's begin our discussion, shall we? Allison, let's start with you. What have your own personal experiences been like as a woman engineer? And also, how can we begin to balance the inequities we are seeing in STEM today?
Ralph, I think the reason we have fewer women in STEM is because of the social conditioning of girls at a young age. Many very young girls are so interested in STEM topics, but they lack that support to forge through the cultural bias in the middle school and junior high years. So often the bias, sadly, comes from their own parents and even school teachers. Personally, I grew up with 2 brothers and just jumped into whatever they were doing. And I was totally fascinated by the Jetsons. So for me, engineering was a pretty natural fit. My high school physics teacher really sealed my fate for me when he talked to us about what engineers do. It was a short lesson in physics class, but it truly impacted the trajectory of my life. I think that the first step in bridging the gap is acknowledging our role in it. What messages are we sending to the young girls in our lives? Are we supporting them as they face the difficult junior high years? Do we try to remove their hardships, or do we let them learn how to really, truly tackle those challenges head on? Do we encourage their love of STEM early on by providing opportunities and experiences for them to do things like coding and robotics and even digging in the dirt? These days, it's often benevolent sexism that drives girls and young women away from STEM.
Thank you, Allison, and that's a great point. There are a lot of ongoing conversations regarding the quiet cultural influences on this issue. Thank you again. Sabrina, what has your STEM journey looked like? What have your challenges been, and how are you helping to elicit change through programs such as Capstone Team?
I faced the biggest challenges as a woman in STEM in college and early in my career. I feel I had to prove myself over and over again and would often find my success discounted or my expertise questioned. There were many times when my ideas were dismissed without consideration or I was overlooked for my technical contribution. These challenges, however, simply turned into extra motivation to work harder and help change the perception of women in STEM. My journey was not easy, which is why I work to elicit change by volunteering and supporting organizations that promote women in STEM, speaking at school career days, mentoring college students, basically anything that I can do to make a positive impact.
Thank you, Sabrina. Your determination is certainly inspiring. Let's get Chris's perspective as the only male in this panel. Chris, as I understand, you are the Mercury sponsor for the BYU Capstone team. What motivated you to get involved, and why was this so important to you?
It's been quite a journey for me, Ralph. At first, honestly, I didn't give it much thought. My mom was an engineer. I've worked with women like Sabrina and Allison for the majority of my career. So, women in STEM was just part of doing business. It wasn't until I started dating and then ultimately marrying my wife, Connie, that I saw firsthand the bias and discrimination that she faced as a female physician. And that's really what got me passionate about the topic. I quickly realized that not being part of the problem is not the same as being part of the solution, and that there was no guarantees that there wasn't bias or discrimination elsewhere in my organization if I didn't take an active role. When I joined Mercury, I wanted to do something to set the right example for the women in my organization, that we supported them and also supported all for focus on diversity. The Capstone Project was a really fun way to do that by enabling these 5 highly capable women to do this project and show that they are just as good as the boys. It sets a clear message to the organization. It's a very visible way for me to come out in support of women in STEM.
Thank you, Chris. I hope more men will take your lead in being a supporting voice for women in technical roles. So let's talk about the Capstone program itself. What is Team Cognite working on, and what has it been like working with the team? Sabrina, let's start with you.
Team Cognite is working on a prototype low-cost tester to validate the assembly of a Mercury DDR4 memory module. The team is currently in the schematic and PCB design phase, working to complete the prototype within the next few weeks. It's a very, very impressive team of students, many experiencing the product development lifecycle for the first time.
Thank you, Sabrina. Sounds like an incredibly valuable real-life work experience. Now, Allison, how do the students like the program? What type of feedback have you been getting specifically about working with the Mercury team?
The team is so grateful to be working with Mercury and in particular with Sabrina. They're currently in the throes of the project with just a few weeks left, and they are really, really recognizing the tremendous value of Sabrina's mentorship and experience, as well as the value of the assistance of other engineers at Mercury. At the beginning of these projects, students often underestimate the level of difficulty and the time that it's going to take to do these projects, and Team Cognite is no exception to that. This really is their first foray into the world of engineering design, so to have the valuable guidance of Sabrina and others at Mercury is just invaluable. My experience has been that over time, students look back on their capstone project as one of the most valuable crucibles of their college career. Right now, though, the only thing they're thinking about is how to get their PCBs laid out correctly and how to find time to program an FPGA.
Thank you for that, Allison. That's great news. Way to go, Team Cognite. Finally, what can you tell our listeners about the importance of companies like Mercury to continue sponsoring capstone programs that give students real-life engineering experiences to help set them up for success in the workplace?
Ruff, simply put, I think there's just no way that we can produce in the classroom what our students are learning with real industry professionals working on real projects. The support of companies like Mercury enables us to help prepare a new generation of engineers who truly have the potential to change the world. The added value of Mercury's focus on diversity, which is reflected in the team and the mentors, is something that I personally consider to be a beacon to the future. We're honored to work side by side with Mercury Systems in educating our students.
Thank you again, Allison. That is great to hear. Sabrina, do you plan on supporting additional initiatives such as a capstone program? Are there any other workplace programs you are involved with specifically for women in STEM?
Absolutely. I'm a believer that women must support women, and I'm committed to devoting my time to any such initiative. Other than the capstone program, we have an unofficial Society of Women Engineers in Phoenix, where we offer support and advice to one another. We all benefit from participating, but I feel this is most useful for the new women engineers that come on board. It helps provide a sense of community from the start of their career journey here at Mercury.
Thank you, Sabrina. Now, Chris, what does the future hold for Mercury supporting more capstone teams and women in STEM in general? And are we hiring any of these amazing students that are graduating in May?
First, let me say the program has been a resounding success. We definitely hope to continue this program with BYU next year, as well as expand to other universities and have multiple capstone teams. Ralph, I would hire every one of these students if I could. I just hope they feel the same way about Mercury as we do about them.
Thank you, Chris. Mercury has made many inroads to advancing the careers of women in STEM. We have many successful women who are thriving in technology roles throughout all levels of the company. And we look forward to welcoming a new generation of women to the fold, and who knows, perhaps from this amazing team, Team Cognite. Allison, Sabrina, Chris, thank you again for your time.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Ralph.
Ralph. It's been great.